Hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are taking on credit cards in YNAB. Okay, so credit cards are probably one of the most confusing parts of YNAB, but I also think that they are one of the best parts of YNAB. I really believe that YNAB was one of the biggest resources that I had whenever I was paying off credit card debt, and I give a ton of credit to YNAB being one of the reasons that I have not cycled back into credit card debt. So whether you are finally ready to start knocking off some of that credit card debt bit by bit, or if you are someone who is already out of credit card debt or you were never there in the first place and you want to be able to use credit cards to your advantage and spend wisely on them, paying them off in full and reaping all the benefits that they have, this video is going to cover exactly how to do both of those things inside of your YNAB budget. Before we get started, if you are enjoying YNAB Fridays, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top, but it also lets me know that you are continuing to like these videos and that I should make more of them. And if you want to learn more about saving, investing, paying off debt, and how to finally feel more confident with your money, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below and push that bell notification. That way you never miss an upload. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I have a budget pulled up here. This is just an example budget. I have put in some categories and some goals, and we have some money in our checking and saving account. So now I'm going to go over and add a credit card. It goes in the same place that you would add your saving or your checking account. In this example, we're going to do an unlinked account and hit down here for a credit card. I am going to say this is our Discover card, and that we currently have $850 on it. Now, because YNAB is smart and it recognizes that because this is a credit card, you need to treat it differently than if it is just a regular bank account, it is going to look a little bit different inside of your budget. So whenever we hit next, it is going to pull up this screen right here. And what this is asking us is if you want to create a goal to pay off this balance over time. So if you don't have enough money in your account right now to fund your credit card in full, this is one of your options. The other option is to budget for your entire balance. So if you do have enough money to pay off your debt over time, then you can click this one, or you can just skip it for now. I'm going to skip it for now. That way I can show you the difference between those two things and what that looks like while we are setting up our budget. So we have our credit card added here. You can see Discover card. It is minus 185 because technically this is money that is not yours. It is owed. It's a debt. So there's like not a positive balance on it. And that 850 that we put in here is the starting balance. So whenever you go onto your credit card app and see how much money you have sitting on your credit card, that is the amount you're going to put in here. Now that we're on the budget screen, you can see that YNAB automatically added this credit card payments category and category group. This is automatic inside of YNAB. You do not need to create this category on your own. Since it recognizes that you have a credit card, it knows it needs to create its own category that has its own specific rules. Now, if you can pay off this credit card in full, it is really simple to go ahead and fund this. You are going to go into this budgeted column. We know we have $850 on our card, so I'm going to type $850 right here. Click enter, and it pulls this money in and shows it up as green. This is telling me, okay, we've taken money from your to be budgeted and we have allocated it to put toward your credit card. So you no longer have this $850 left to put toward other expenses because it already has its own job. We are going to cover tracking spending on your credit card here in a little bit, but if you can fully fund your card, you are good to go for now. Now, let's be honest here, that is not a lot of people's situations. And if you are someone who is stuck in a paycheck to paycheck cycle and you are wanting to figure out how to navigate credit cards inside of YNAB, chances are it's because you currently have a balance on your credit card that you can't pay off in full. Now, don't feel bad. This is most people's situations. YNAB understands that and it has options for you. So the first thing that you need to do is go to this Discover card category and create a goal. YNAB is going to give you two different options. You can either pay off the balance by a specific date or put a specific amount toward that credit card balance monthly. So let's say I have a goal to pay off this $850 by next year, so July of 2022. I'm going to go ahead and click Save Goal, and YNAB recognizes, okay, we want to put $850 toward this category by July of 2022. And in order to reach that goal, it is telling me right here that I need to budget $60.72 more this month in order to stay on track. So just like any other goal inside of YNAB, I can click this underfunded button, and it is not going to try to put $850 inside of this goal, because we have not told YNAB that that is our goal. We have told YNAB, look, I know it's not realistic for me to put this entire $850 into this credit card goal, but I want to try to pay off my credit card debt within the next year. So it knows that it just needs to set aside that specific amount of money to get you to that goal by that date. Let's say you don't have a specific date in mind, but you do know that you want to put a certain amount of money toward your credit card every month. You are going to select this pay specific amount monthly and choose an amount that is realistic for you. In this case, let's go ahead and say you have an extra $50 a month to put toward your credit card. Hit save goal, and then here it is. YNAB now knows that every month your goal is to put $50 toward your credit card payment. And if we scroll down here to this underfunded button, click underfunded, YNAB will take that $50 from to be budgeted and put it toward our Discover card. No matter how you decide to do this, just make sure that your monthly goal at least pays for the minimum payment on your credit card. This varies depending on what your balance is and whoever you have a card through, but just check, see what your typical minimum payment is. You can just scroll over through the last few months to see what they have been requiring for a minimum payment from you, and make sure that the goal that you have set up in YNAB at least meets that. That way you can avoid any late fees or any missed payments on your credit score. But keep in mind, if you plan on still spending money on your credit card while you're trying to pay it off, if you can't pay it off in full, the amount of money that you are allocating toward this goal, if you are telling YNAB that you want to put $50 a month toward your credit card, this is $50 on top of whatever extra spending that you are doing on your credit card. And don't worry, I am going to break down for you exactly what that looks like, and it will make more sense. So now that you know how to set up a goal for paying off your credit card inside of YNAB, let's take a look at how spending on your credit card works inside of YNAB. And for me, this is the part that I think is so genius. Whenever I was in credit card debt, I kept cycling back into more and more debt because I just felt like it was impossible to keep up with trying to make sure that I am paying more than I'm spending on my credit card so that I can eventually pay off my credit card debt, while also still putting spending on my credit card and trying to make sure that I had enough to cover that as well. And it all just got way too confusing for me to do on my own. I would plan to be able to cover my monthly spending by the end of the month, but then because it was all mixed up with the spending I had already done on that credit card, I would think that I could pay off my credit card with next paycheck, forgetting about the monthly expenses that that paycheck needed to cover that were coming up. And then inevitably, I just kept cycling deeper and deeper into credit card debt. And this happened over and over and just kept getting more complicated the more debt that I was getting into. So when I finally understood how spending works inside of YNAB, it was like a light bulb went off, and it totally finally made sense. Because ultimately, YNAB recognizes that credit card spending is different than debit card spending. To help illustrate this, let's say you are going to go ahead and fill up your tank of gas at a gas station, and you swipe with your debit card to pay that $30 that it takes to fill up your tank. Whenever you swipe your credit card for that $30, that money automatically comes out of your bank account, and you can no longer spend that money on other things. It's already been put toward that gas, it's gone. However, when you go to that same gas station and fill up your tank with $30 worth of gas and swipe your credit card instead, that money doesn't automatically come out of your bank account. So even though you have spent $30, you still have that same $30 to spend inside of your bank account, because technically you didn't spend that money. Technically, the credit card company bought that gas for you, and you have promised to pay them back by the end of the month. And if you can't, they inevitably will end up charging you interest for the time that it takes for you to pay them back for whatever that is that they bought you. And this is exactly why we can cycle into credit card debt so quickly, because we don't automatically see that money leave our bank account. So YNAB treats credit cards in the way that they should be treated inside of your budget. But this is all theoretical, which makes it kind of hard to wrap your mind around. So let me go ahead and show you an example of what this looks like. So let's take that same example of gas, and I have $30 to spend on gas that I am putting from to be budgeted into this gas category. Now let's say I go and spend that $30 on a debit card. In order to track that inside of YNAB, I go to the checking account that debit card is hooked up to, and I'm going to add a transaction. Let's say Speedway, the category is gas, and I have spent $30. When I click save, a couple things happen. One, you can see the balance of our checking account went down inside of YNAB, just like it went down in real life. It went from $1,400 to $1,370 because we have spent that $30 from our checking account using our debit card. Another thing that happened is that $30 got taken out of our gas category, and now we don't have any money left to spend inside of that category. However, let's go ahead and look at what it looks like if we spent that same $30 on our credit card instead. So I go over here to the Discover card, add a transaction, same thing from Speedway. It is under the gas category because we are spending money on gas, and we are spending that same $30. When I click save, now you'll see that $1,400 is still in our checking account. It didn't come out of here. Instead, it came out of our credit card. So now, instead of our balance being $850, we now owe the credit card company $880 because we owe them for our past spending, and we need to pay them back for the gas that we just bought. But when we come over to our budget, you'll see YNAB understood that that $30 of spending was meant to come out of your gas category because it was spent on gas. So it still took that $30 out of your gas category. Except instead, what it has done is it's moved this $30 from gas and it has put it toward your payment for your credit card because it recognized that you didn't pay Speedway $30 for gas. Your credit card company paid Speedway $30 for your gas, and you now are telling your credit card company that you are going to pay them back. So you owe them $30 for that gas that they bought you. But even though you now owe the credit card company, it was still a transaction meant to buy you gas. So YNAB is going to take it out of that spending category. Let me give you another example of what spending on your credit card looks like. So for gas, we had to go to Speedway, so wipe our credit card and spend that money. Let me show you another example of that using a fixed monthly expense like a phone bill. In this example, our phone bill is $30 a month. I'm going to go ahead and move money from To Be Budgeted into this phone bill and show you what that spending looks like on a credit card. So let's go ahead and add a transaction. It is from T-Mobile. The category is your phone bill, and the outflow is also $30. So let's go ahead and click save. That $30 has been added to the money that we owe Discover to equal $910. And inside of our budget, same thing happened here. YNAB took that money from our phone bill, but moved it up to the money that we owe our credit card. But now what we can see is that this is the money you have set aside to make a payment toward your credit card, which is $60. However, if we look over here, we can see we don't owe the credit card company $60, we owe them $910. And that's because the only money that we have put toward our credit card payment is the spending that we have done inside of our budget with YNAB. We haven't put any extra money toward that credit card. So not only does the payment not match our statement balance, we can also see here that if we have set up a credit card goal to put $50 a month toward our credit card, even though we have a payment of $60 scheduled, YNAB is still telling you, hey, you might have put $60, but that's because that's what you spent on your credit card so far. You still need to put another $50 inside of this category in order to reach your goal. So this is what I was meaning when I said that this goal amount is on top of whatever spending you are also doing on your credit card. And this is why I love YNAB so much for helping you to stop cycling more into debt, because it recognizes that if you only put $50 toward your credit card right now, you would have put less than you spent. So you are going to continue cycling more and more into debt. Whereas if you have a goal of putting $50 toward your credit card, that is on top of any extra spending you're doing. You're not gonna make a dent unless you are putting the money that you are spending on your credit card toward your credit card and also extra on top of that. So we can see once we add that $50, now we have a check mark saying, look, you've met your goal for this month, you're good to go, but it is still yellow. And the reason that it's yellow is because I have this YNAB toolkit turned on, which I talked about more in this video that I will link here, but I have it set up inside of my account where if this number doesn't match my statement balance, YNAB is going to give me a little warning by keeping it yellow and saying, hey, if you want to pay off this balance in full, you need to budget more money. So we can see if I went ahead and budgeted that original $850 that we had on our credit card, plus the $60 that we have spent, that equals $910, which finally matches the amount of money that we owe on our credit card and has turned this category green, saying you are good to go. You can cover the statement balance you had on your credit card when you started and the money that you have spent since. Now that we have covered all of the basics about spending money on your credit card and setting up the goals, let's talk about what happens when you overspend on your credit card. So for this example, I have moved money into all of my categories. So we can see up here, the to be budgeted is equal to 0. I have given every single dollar a job. That doesn't mean I've met all my goals. We can see here that I haven't met some of these goals, and then I also haven't met some of these immediate obligations either. But I want to show you what it looks like when you are spending money on your credit card that you don't have inside of a category. So let's go ahead and say you just went on a grocery run. And you went to Walmart to buy some groceries and you spent $75 there. When we click save, a couple of things happen. We can see the typical things that have happened, which is adding that $75 to our Discover card balance. However, now this little thing has popped up here that says $25 in overspending. Let's hop over to our budget and see what that looks like. So if we look at our grocery category, we can see that I had put $50 toward groceries. However, I spent $75 this time around. So now it is popping up this little warning here. It turns the category red because we are negative $25, and it gives me this little like credit card symbol here. We can also see that even though I spent $75 in this category, YNAB only moved $50 up toward my Discover card payment. So before we had $910 set aside. Now, even though we spent $75, we only have an extra $50 set aside. And that's because YNAB recognizes that out of this $75, we only had $50 to spend in this category. So it was only able to put that $50 toward our credit card payment. It won't allocate that extra $25 toward your credit card payment until you cover this overspending. So if you can cover this overspending, awesome. One of your options is just to click on this, hit cover overspending with, and let's say we can move $25 from rent. Now we're good to go. We can see this payment balance has gone up by the $25, and YNAB has put this full $75 that we owe the credit card company for buying us groceries toward our Discover card. But let's say, for example, for some reason you can't move any of this money and you can't cover this overspending. So even though today is the 17th, let's go ahead and fast forward and say it is now July 1st. We move over here and wait, we still have all of this money in these spending categories that we didn't spend. So where did this negative 25 go? You can see it didn't go up here. This 960 is still the same as the 960 from June. So now that it's a new month, YNAB is telling you, okay, you did this overspending on your credit card, but we're not going to move money around that you don't have. So now if you want to reach being able to pay off your credit card in full, you're going to need to add that $25 at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. The same thing applies to overspending on a credit card, even if you were never able to pay off your credit card in full in the first place. We can see here in June when we did overspend, it's at $110. Now it's the first of the month, it's July. We still only have $110 to put toward our card. So we are going to need to make up that $25 at some point, hopefully this month, if not soon down the road. This is why it is so important to go through your budget and make sure that you haven't overspent on your credit card at all. Because if you don't overspend, or if you're able to cover that overspending by the end of the month, then you are never going to go back into the cycle of racking up more credit card debt. So you want to make it your goal to avoid overspending, or at least to cover it whenever possible. And YNAB is going to help you out by giving you those alerts of whenever you've overspent on your card. So now that we have talked about all that, you might be wondering, where in the heck does interest play a role in this? And don't worry, I didn't forget that interest exists. Trust me, interest definitely exists on credit cards. But YNAB handles interest differently than you might expect. Unlike your main credit card payments and credit card categories that YNAB sets up for you automatically whenever you put your credit card into the accounts page, YNAB does not factor in interest. So you don't need to sit there plugging in APRs and minimum payments and all of that. You are going to go and add your own interest category group. So I'm just going to call this interest. I'm going to move it right below credit card payments. I'm going to name this Discover Card Interest. And the reason that we do this is because YNAB recognizes that interest is charged to your credit card just like any other expenses. Whenever your phone bill comes out of your credit card, you're charged $30 for that. And whatever your interest is that you owe the credit card company, they are going to charge you for that just like an expense on your credit card. Because really all that interest is just an expense that you are paying the credit card company for the time that they are giving you to pay back your debt. Instead of buying groceries, you're buying time. So one option for covering interest is that whenever that interest charge inevitably comes up on your credit card, you are going to want to budget for that. So let me show you what that would look like. You are going to be charged interest from your Discover card. The category is interest. And let's say in this example, your interest is $45. It is another expense, so it's another outflow. And when we go to our budget, we can see here, it is showing up right now as an overspending because I haven't allocated any money toward paying off our interest. So now I need to cover this overspending. Since I have some money in to be budgeted, I can go ahead and do that. Another option is to cover this whenever you get paid. If you are still stuck in that paycheck to paycheck cycle when you're first starting with YNAB. And then there we go. We have covered that interest charge. That money moved up to our payment for our credit card and turned a $135 payment into a $180 payment. However, if it were me, I would go about this a little bit differently. Since the goal in YNAB is to break that paycheck to paycheck cycle, personally, I would create a goal to put money aside every month toward your interest. Even if it's not exact, at least you have some money set aside to pay off that interest that you're going to accumulate on your credit card. Because in theory, if you have multiple different credit cards, you can still just have one credit card interest category. I'll show you what that looks like. We have our $45 from our Discover card, the interest rate on that going toward our Discover card right now. Let's say we add another credit card. You have an Amex, and that one has $500 on it. YNAB is going to add that right here under credit card payments. We are going to input our interest, and in order to track that interest, we are going to come over here to our Amex card, add interest as a transaction. Let's say this one was $15, click save, and then we can see right here, even though we had $45 put into this category, that covered our Discover card interest. However, we have another $15 we need to spend on our American Express interest, so I need to add $15 to that category. And whenever I do that, you'll see that the $0 that we have to put toward our American Express right now is going to go up to 15. So even though this is all happening inside of one category, since we specified to YNAB, this was an interest charge on our American Express, whereas this one was an interest charge on our Discover card, it knows inside of your budget where that money needs to go toward. But in my opinion, the best way to truly get ahead and make sure that you are covered and good to go when it comes to your credit cards inside of YNAB is to actually split this up. So I'm going to specify if I have two credit cards that I have one category for Discover card interest and one for my Amex interest. So now you have a separate goal for your American Express interest and your Discover card interest. If I were you, I would just go back through the last few months of your credit card statements and see what is the average that they have been charging you for interest. Hopefully, as you start paying off your credit card, this will get smaller over time, but you can adjust as you go. So let's go ahead and say the average that they seem to be charging you for interest right now with the balance you have on your Discover card is that $45. We are going to create a goal for this. I plan on going more in depth over what goals mean what here in next week's YNAB Friday video. So if that is already up by the time you're watching this, I will link that down below. But for this case, I'm just going to go ahead and make this a very simple needed for spending monthly goal of $45, meaning we need to put $45 into this category to cover our Discover card interest every month. If it happens to be a little bit more or less than that, then you can move some money around, but this at least gets you a little bit prepared for that expense. I recommend doing the same exact thing with your American Express. Let's say this one is less, it's $15. We create that goal, and now YNAB knows that we need to set aside $45 in our Discover card interest and $50 in our American Express interest on top of whatever our credit card debt payoff goals are. Because remember, this goal that you are putting toward your credit card is how much extra you want to put toward your card after all expenses are paid. And one of those expenses is interest. So now that we have those goals set up, when we click on this goal, we can see that we are underfunded by $15. This is YNAB telling us, hey, you need to take $15 from To Be Budgeted and put it toward this goal to make sure you can cover your Amex interest. Same thing goes for our Discover card. So when inevitably, let's say today we got charged our interest rate on our Discover card for $45, it's going to come out of this category and click Save. And then we also got charged interest on our American Express. It's going to come out of the American Express interest for $15. Click Save. And now we were good to go. There's no needing to move any money around because we had already prepared for that expense. YNAB has already moved this $45 up to our Discover card and this $15 up to our Amex. Whew! Okay, we are almost finished with credit cards in YNAB. The last thing that we need to go over is what it looks like to make active payments on your card inside of YNAB. So right now, all the money that we have been setting aside for our Discover and our Amex has just been that, putting money aside. We haven't actually made any payments onto those cards yet. So for this example, I want to give an example of each. So let's say that we have a goal to completely cover our American Express. So I need to add $500 more from To Be Budgeted to cover that expense. However, our Discover card is more, we don't quite have that much money. We still have our goal here of putting $50 a month toward our Discover card, so I'm going to go ahead and fund that. So that $50 gets added to the $180 that we have spent on our Discover card this month. Now, pretending that it is our due date for both of these cards, let me show you what that looks like, because a lot of people get tripped up and they go to add a transaction into here and they think that the payee would be like Discover payment, right? But then when you go to a category, you don't have anywhere to take that money from. So then you're all lost and confused. I've been there. You think maybe you messed up, you needed to add a Discover payment category, and you're confused about where this money is supposed to be coming from. And that's because this is not an expense. It is technically a transfer between accounts. So in order to make a payment on your Discover card inside of YNAB, you are transferring money from your checking account that is set aside to put toward your Discover card. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can either just add a transaction into your Discover card, but the payee is going to be your checking account because you are using your checking to pay off your credit card. So you'll see when you do that, YNAB is going to tell you that you don't need a category because it understands that you are just moving money around. And in this case, you can pay off however much you want. So since you have $230, this would actually be an inflow because again, we are taking money from checking and putting it into our Discover. But right now, we are on our Discover transactions. So we're not spending any more money from Discover, we are putting money into our Discover card. So then when we click Save, you can see the payment goes down to $0. Our Discover card balance goes down by $230. And inside of our budget, YNAB is telling us we don't have any extra money to put toward another payment until we add more money into this budgeted category. However, this can get a little bit complicated between deciding when is it an inflow, when is it an outflow. So in reality, you don't even have to worry about that. Now, YNAB just has this little button here that says record payment. So we go down to the card that we want to make a payment on, hit record payment. It will automate that it's coming from your checking account, and it will automate it as an inflow of whatever money you have set aside in your budget to pay toward your credit card. And then all you have to do is click Save, and it does the exact same thing that I just showed you, but in a lot less steps without having to think. That's what it looks like when you don't have enough to pay off your credit card, because now we can see, even though we still owe $800 onto our credit card, since we couldn't pay off that Discover card in full, we don't have any more money to put toward that card right now, unless we wanted to go back and add more money into this account. However, when we are recording a payment with our Amex, you're going to designate what bank account this money is coming out of, category isn't needed, and it is going to automatically fill in this payment amount, which is the amount you have set aside to put toward your Amex. And this time when we click Save, our Amex goes down to $0, our payment goes down to $0, and it turns gray. So this is showing us you don't have any money left to put on your Amex, but you also don't have any money on your Amex. So you are good to go. you are paid in full, and you have officially gotten out of American Express credit card debt. Now you can solely focus on continuing to cover any spending that you put on your Amex in the future and trying to pay down your Discover card balance. If you're in a situation where you cannot pay down your credit card in full every month like we are with this Discover card, just make sure before you make an actual payment to your credit card that you consult your YNAB budget to see how much money you have to put toward a credit card payment. So, we are done. That is it for credit cards inside of YNAB. I hope that you have a better understanding of how this works, and I hope that you learned something cool. If you did, please remember to give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content. And I will see you all next time. Bye.